So you're thinking about selling your house here in Arizona, and you're wondering, okay, how much does it really cost to sell my home? I know obviously I'll set the purchase price, but what other fees are there? What should I expect when I'm looking to sell my home? So today I'm going to talk through that and the three major things that you need to look at when selling your home. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Mark Cannon, local realtor here in the Phoenix area with my home group real estate and owner of the Benchmark Real Estate team. So guys, this is a podcast format. As always, that's why it's called Real Talk, is I'm just trying to be transparent with you, just trying to be real with you, trying to give you accurate information so that way you can make the best decision possible. Not here to convince you of anything, just trying to help you. So today we're talking through, okay, you're thinking about selling your house, let's say in Phoenix. All right, great. Well, how much is that going to cost me? Like, obviously we set the purchase price, but what else is there? And so I'm going to walk through that so that way you can understand a little bit. I'm going to do a screencast so that way you can see some things. I'll have some resources for you as well. So that way, if you want it, you can look through those things. So let's get into it. Let me make myself smaller. You don't need to look at me. All right. So thanks to Magnus Title for having this app that I can use to actually generate some of this stuff. Now, just realize this is all estimates. These are not exact numbers because everyone's situation is different. Okay, I'm just giving you an example of stuff. So the median price in Phoenix, probably around $450. So we're going to start there. Just as a disclaimer here, when you see the broker fees. So the seller broker fee, just so you understand, since the documents have changed, that is determined when you sign with a realtor to sell your house. The buyer broker fee is determined later, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the seller broker fee, you negotiate that with your agent. You determine a fee. Great, that goes into your listing agreement. And boom, there you go. That is set. There we go. It's done. The buyer broker agreement changed in 2024, and that is now negotiated at the time of the offer. So that when a buyer brings a contract, they say, hey, here's how much our agent wants, and you can negotiate that. Okay. So just so everyone's aware, the number, I'm just going to use 3 just for round number's sake. So that way it's easier. Okay. So those numbers are in there, and we're showing, like in this market, we're in a buyer's market. A lot of sellers are paying for the buyer's broker's fee. Again, it's not required. It's just what's happening in this market right now, typically what we're seeing. So, and again, I'm not saying the numbers are typical. I'm just saying that they're negotiating with a buyer broker. That is typical in this market. We're not going to put any seller concessions in here at this point. We're just going to show rough numbers' sake. Property taxes, just going to do just kind of an estimated number. We're going to say the seller still has a loan balance of $250,000 with an interest rate of 3%. So we are going to compute that. I'm going to move myself over here. All right. So it shows a net. So like I can show a net sheet, $166,000. Now I want to see detailed closing costs. All right. So total closing costs, $30,000. Now just rule of thumb, sellers have less closing costs as far as fees from like title companies and stuff like that. They have less closing costs in that sense. But obviously they're paying for realtor compensation a lot of times. So that's one of those where it might be higher. So as you see the breakdown, owner's title policy, $2187. Again, estimates. Escrow fee, $785. Processing fee, $225. So that's just the title fees. Buyers have way more title fees. They have lender fees, things like that. Other fees, interest, $226. Here's the compensation pieces. And that's the vast majority of this. So if you actually do that math, let's see, that's like $27,000. So really you're paying about $3,500 in fees. So that's where you can see a little bit of a breakdown of what the fee structure looks like on the selling side. I'm going to be doing another video about the buying side, so you can check that out if you want. When we actually come back here, you can see prorated taxes. You can see all of this stuff right here. It's showing, oh, here's the balance for the loan. So they would make out with $166,000 if they closed at asking price of $450, or whatever that looks like. So that's kind of just shows you kind of the fees. I'm going to show you something else. Move myself again. And you can find this. I have this in a resource book that I give to my clients. So if you want this, let me know. Or if you go to a lot of my links, you'll find this as in one of my links. It shows you what is typical. So it says closing costs, who pays what. This is usually the customary, not always the case, but usually is the case. So you can see some like taxes prorated. You can see what's buyer, what's seller, and then there's negotiable factors. So a lot of this stuff is, you've got your negotiables. A lot of it's buyers. As you can see, a lot of the closing costs are buyers, as I said that previously. So take a look at this if you want. Again, if you want a copy, you can let me know. But this is typically what people are paying for. So the 3 things that I typically tell people to watch for is obviously the first thing you're going to pay for as a seller is the agent fees. That's the first thing you're going to pay for. You're going to pay for agent fees because like right now we're in a buyer's market. So obviously you're going to be paying your listing agent you're always going to be able to negotiate the buyer's side. You negotiate with the listing agent up front, but you negotiate with the buyer side of the contract. So when you're doing all that stuff, that's already baked in. You know that's coming. The second thing, which I already went through just now, was the fees from like title, or if you negotiate some other fees in. Like obviously, if you're in a 55 older community, you might negotiate some other fees in. So again, just depends on the negotiation that you have with the buyers. There might be some other fees you have to pay, but that's all negotiable. The third thing I would tell you is time. And why do I say that? Is because right now we're in a buyer's market / balance market. If you value, when I sit down with people, I say, what is your goal? What's the biggest goal that you have? Obviously, everyone's goal is to make the most money, obviously. What's the next goal? Oh, well, I want to sell my house in a month. Okay, well, then you're going to have to price accordingly. And so I have people that's where they get mixed up. Oh, I want to sell this as fast as possible. Oh, actually, I want to sell it $50,000 over what you're suggesting because I think it's just worth it. And it's like, well, hold on. And we're struggling with this a little bit because it's a matter of, there's emotions and everything like that. But a lot of times, my job is if you have a goal, I'm going to try and help you achieve it. I want to make you as much money as I can. That is my number one goal, make you as much money as possible through negotiations, all that stuff. So that way you can walk away achieving your goals. But you have to understand time does cost money. So if you want to sit longer on the market, okay, that's fine. You can. If you want to sell it faster, you're going to price it appropriately. Now, I'm not saying you're going to price it 100K under. I'm not saying that. You're not doing that. But it's one of those that you do have to be realistic with where the market is. And that's what my job is as a realtor, to pay attention to the market. What are the trends? What's happening in your area? That kind of stuff. So if you are thinking about selling and you're just not sure what to do, I'd love to sit down with you. I'd love to take you to coffee and just say, hey, let's see what your goals are. And if we're a fit, great. That'd be awesome. My number's right here. Reach out to me, shoot me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever. I'm here to help however I can, here to serve. Guys, you've been listening to Real Talk Real Estate. I'll catch you next time.